Welcome everyone to the first ever Kersey's Coffee and Jam. This podcast, I will be getting guests on to talk about business, music, and just generally what they're doing in their lives. So hopefully you enjoy. My first guest is a very good friend of mine. His name is James Ratcliffe.
So you nailed the name.
There we go.
You stuck the landing.
I already
That's all you
got
had
it in
to
there.
do.
That's all I had to do.
Not
So,
Radcliffe. I get R-A-D a lot.
well,
R-A-D a lot.
J-Rat, that is what your actual name firstly came to me as.
Yeah, birth certificate.
And I love that because I've always had the sort of identity of rat in my life. And I
We've
felt,
spoken about this,
yeah,
haven't
we
we?
did
Yeah.
speak about this. And I spent a lot of my formative years at jobs being
As a rat.
called the rat. Basically the bottom of the lowest of the low. But I loved it. I like scumming around and
I was going on can I tell you a story?
Go on.
I was going on a run the other day
yeah.
and I was running through Hatfield. For anybody who hasn't been to Hatfield, it's quite a rat-centric place.
Yeah.
It could be described as ratty.
Ratty.
I don't
yeah.
know which. I'm not sure if it's a chicken and egg thing where like I'm a rat, I came first, or Hatfield came first. I'm not sure. But I was running down
Hatfield,
past
definitely.
past Asda, of course, and as I was running, a rat came out of a bush, and it sort of became startled by me, and then sort of like went to run away. But
Yeah.
it just so happened that it ran away in the same direction as I was running.
So you were both...
So for like 2 meters, we ran alongside. I ran alongside my namesake, my spirit animal, the rat.
I think
And it
it's...
was actually really beautiful.
That's
And then he
beautiful,
kind
man.
of just went away. Because I feel like sometimes things like this happen on runs. I don't know. Do you run? Like, do you
I don't run.
exercise?
No, I do exercise. Oh, wow. You know, I do some exercise. I don't run. I did a 10K once.
Yeah, how'd that go for you?
We did about eight runs before it and then did a 10K. Me and Sarah just got overtaken by everyone. But
That's
I...
a big thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just whizzing past you. First time I did a 10K, just nothing but and you don't feel very nice about yourself.
I felt
because
really
there were
bad.
incredibly fit people out there.
Oh, man. And not you... Well, someone's coming at the door. Ralph's there. But don't worry. We're all safe. We're all safe. He'll save us. Right. Let's... I don't know. Should we go down this rabbit hole anymore, or this rat hole anymore?
I think
I feel like I want to ask you some things.
No, I think I definitely think a bit longer. We're very much in the what is it? What happens at the beginning of sex? The foreplay
We're at
of the
fore-
podcast.
Well, I think so. Yeah,
and
maybe.
I think in order to have a good experience sexually, conversationally, there needs to be a certain amount of like, prodding here.
Where are we
what
going?
happens if I hit this button? Maybe we don't. Maybe that was too far, and then we come back and we go back and forth a little bit. And I think I think this a lot about friendships. That I think the sign of like a really good and a really healthy friendship is just mildly ADD, frantic chaos.
Okay.
Constant like tangenting.
Never really getting to the point.
Yeah, maybe, which maybe isn't like entertaining to listen to. But I didn't come on here to entertain anybody. I just haven't seen you in ages. And I just really want to talk to you.
I did. I called you up, didn't I? I called you up maybe a month ago. Might be even been a bit longer. And I said to you, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. Do you want to be on it? And then immediately after we did that, it was, okay, we can't really talk now for a month because we were saving it all up.
Yeah, it was very much sort of, what do we call it? Social edging.
We were socially edging each other, yeah. And I feel thoroughly edged. So I want to know what have you been doing? What have you been doing?
Well, I need to pace myself because otherwise I'll just explode with the social edging. What have I been doing? I've actually been really, really busy and it's been really, really stressful.
Ah.
And I think that's just that period of my life has just ended, or like I've just like gone through a period where I've handed like a bunch of stuff in for a new release. Sort of, and I feel like after, like big chapters in your life, when you have to finish a big project or finish something, you always end up sort of like, I get like a bit existential and kind of philosophical about what I'm doing, the nature of life, like all really light subjects that are perfect for a podcast. You know? No, but like, really I've been thinking about, the nature of like, the nature of success, or what it means to succeed in any capacity or get something that you want and then find that maybe it's not fulfilling, which is a really depressing thought, but it's something that I've been like realizing a lot as I get older.
Right. That the thing that you thought that you wanted just isn't quite it. Or that when you came up with the idea that it was what you were going for, maybe when you get there, you're just...
Sure. It's still like a half-baked idea in my mind. But I've just noticed, the only thing I can say is that I've noticed in my life, as I've gone through it, I've had like milestone, like if I could do this, if I could achieve this. So like first one for me was like getting into like Guildhall. So that's a, if anyone doesn't know, it's like a music college where you can go study music, and it's all very elitist and blah, 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 blah. And yeah, and then I got into there, and for the first few months I was like, oh my God, I've made it. This is it. I'm going to be happy now forever. I have arrived. The happily ever after has begun. And then 2 months in, it's like same shit, different day. 2 months in, I'm like just some mug like knocking about. And I've had a similar thing recently where, so the band that I'm in, or like me as a composer or writer or whatever, I got this publishing deal, which means that I am employed to make music, which is incredible. Yeah. And I'm so genuinely lucky. I've worked really hard and I'm like good. Yeah. Right? But like still, it takes a little bit of like luck and, you know, like living at your parents and being a bit privileged, whatever. Yeah. And someone who is insane enough to like pay me a bit, not a lot, but like enough to like buy live a Costa and guitar, and pay you to like fix my guitar. Yeah.
that's the main thing, of course.
Right. Yeah. To make music, and I'm finding myself like wanting to procrastinate, bored, not wanting to make anything. And I know this is like a really depressing thought, but it's just made me think like, okay, well, no wonder so many successful people go off the rails, have substance issues, and are like so miserable. And I think it's so easy to like not take pity on them and not sympathize with them. And to be fair, like, I don't know, like a rock star, maybe like Matty Healy or something. Oh, yeah. You know, it's very difficult regardless to take pity on him too much, because he probably has a fantastic life. But yeah, I've just been noticing recently, like, what is that about? And it must mean that life is a lot broader than just succeeding in whatever is your chosen domain. You know? So then recently I thought, well, maybe I should like go on like a woodworking class, or get a hobby, or like maybe this is why men fish.
I think no, I mean, have you been fishing?
No, I haven't. No,
mate. I mean, to be honest, I love fishing. Like it was a thing that we used to do. My uncle, my dad used to take me and my cousin fishing. We used to go to Scotland when we were younger. It was just amazing. And you'd like, it was just a good day of, you know, most of the time. I mean, when you start out, you don't catch anything because you're just trying to work out how to use the equipment. But I think to draw it back to what you were talking about. Yeah, sorry,
which was really long-winded and ranty.
They're saying basically that you've gotten to a point where you've thought you've got to your goal. Yeah. And then you're not feeling content. Yeah. Is that basically...
But then when you say it like that, it makes me think, well, I just have to set a new goal. And that is just the ultimate, like, it's just, everything's just one big cycle of like setting a goal, going through it, thinking, because really it's the middle bit. It's the journey. Oh. Guys, it's the journey. But
you've got to enjoy what
how vocal fry is that? I'm going to put my headband. Guys, it's the journey. It's like that Cyrus clip.
I don't know. I don't know that.
You guys know that clip of Miley Cyrus? What does she say?
Oh, where she's got that real
croaky voice. Yeah. Probably they call it vocal fry because it sounds like your vocal cords are being fried, right?
Yeah.
It's something like, oh, is it not the destination? It's the journey.
No, yeah. I've never done vocal fry before.
Why don't you try it out?
I can't.
No, it's more like you got to go like Valley Girl with it, and you got to make your R's hard like that. It's like the beginning of NPR podcast is like, Billy was a 15-year-old boy in Texas. Little did he know the powers that would be in Starbucks would come to ruin his life entirely. I'm Penelope Cruz fat. And in this 12.5-part journey, we're going to be going through Billy's story.
Well, look, sorry. I think everyone's learned something today about you. You were, a couple months ago, struggling with sort of management.
Yeah.
And one of the questions I was going to say, because it might be quite helpful to someone else who's like either going through the same thing or just getting into the idea of getting management and things, are, what are the things from your experience of it? 'Cause, from talking to you and going through your situation, you had a bit of a bumpy start with it, I guess. And some, as we found out, from that conversation, like things that were red flags.
Yeah.
What would you say is the things that you could offer people as advice about
it's a good
your
point.
own situation?
It's a good point, because random tangents on like philosophy and are probably like not useful, but you make a good point, because you, like, I suppose, the last few years, the band and whatever, we've had a relatively speaking, very small modicum of success.
Yeah.
But just have gone up like a few rungs of the ladder in the music industry. And I'd say, you're so right, because at the beginning, really went in like so blind, not knowing anything, so naive.
And how long have you been, when you started that, how long have you been out of education as far as like music goes? And like, where were you when you were starting that
Good
process?
question. I think I'd been out of Guildhall, so that was my master's, and I'd been out of Guildhall like a year, maybe 2 years, and I was living with a bunch of guys, and I was sort of like doing little different bits. I was like doing some producing for some friends, and I was like teaching a lot, and like I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I definitely didn't have like the courage to be an artist, as kind of wanky as it sounds. But I just thought no. And then a bunch of my friends like convinced me to do it, because they heard stuff that I was working on, and they were like, we should make a band around this, and we did. Released the first song right before lockdown.
Brilliant.
Right, brilliant. Jan, Feb.
An amazing time to start something.
I know, it was wild, and we had like our first headline show, but really that we like sold out, and it was all going for it. And then that was on like March 13th, 14th. It was like, or 18th.
Was it that cusp bit where everyone was like starting to get a little bit twitchy?
It was the show was on the Wednesday, and Bojo went on the TV and said, "You've got to lock your doors on the Monday."
Yeah.
So it was like that, like fine, and then, but then a little bit. But it was weird because we then had like a bunch of time in lockdown to make stuff. But anyway, I'm getting off the question actually, because it was more about management, and I guess I have been reflecting on it a lot. I think something that you're tricked into thinking super early days in the music industry is that like you sort of, or it can be so easy to feel like you have no power and you need these people, and they are most often men, because it is still like a massive boys club, to basically like give you permission, give you the opportunity, and it's so easy for you to feel like you're working for them, you're beholden to them, you should go along with what they think, say and feel. But actually, it is precisely the opposite way around. And I've had like a guy who's a good friend of mine, is this guy Ollie Hodge, and he was like the head of A&R at Polydor. Mm-hmm. He's no longer anymore now. I think he's going to be. But like the dude's a big deal. And like I've had the most refreshing conversations with him, because at times he's like, well, he's sort of like remind me, I'll try to instill the idea in me that actually most people, you've probably heard this before, but like the majority of the people in the industry have absolutely like no idea. Even the people who are really, really great, the people who are really, 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 really great in the industry admit that
they don't know everything. Yeah.
They don't. Well, yeah, they know nothing. They don't know what the big thing is. What they're really good at is like helping talent. Yeah, helping people, helping artists. Because like what is an artist? What is a music artist? Someone who can like, through their own unique perspective in life and their experiences, combine things that they're interested within and a little bit of the zeitgeist sprinkled in there to make something new and that resonates with people, right? Nobody in the industry can do that. They are completely beholden to anybody who can.
Yeah.
That's why major labels are investing heavily in the TikTok space, because TikTok is a big problem for them, because those people who are doing that thing and making that art, which has a value, which can be a commodity, are reaching and connecting with their audience directly. And it renders the whole label system process completely obsolete.
Sure. I was coming in with, off the back of your point, about people getting snatched up as quickly as possible by labels because they want to feel important. And there was that guy recently, Oliver Anthony, and he just blew up in America. He did this kind of very sort of budget. It was well done because you can do stuff well now at home.
Yeah.
But it was just him in his backyard with a resonator guitar singing into a mic. And it was this kind of, I think it was Rich Men North of Richmond. And it's like this it's a very basic song, but I think it resonated to a lot of people because it speaks to, you know, what people are feeling, generally, like just in the culture about, like, you know, just not having enough money because everyone's just, you know, the poor are just getting poorer and the richer are just getting richer, and it's just, and it resonated well, but he obviously blew up because of it's resonating well with, you know, the common person and
proletariat.
And then basically the labels all jumped on him, were offering him big contracts, and he actually said no to them all.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting, that takes a lot of guts to do that, but you're right in saying that, you know, they are trying to make themselves important because like the technology allows you to do it all.
Back in the day, label would come along and be like, hey, you haven't got 100 grand's worth of, you can't make a record in your bedroom.
No.
Even in the 90s.
Not properly.
So we're going to, like, fund that. Another big thing with, like, the label thing, just off what the back you were saying, reminded me, like, your man probably said no because really when it comes down to it, labels are, whenever you get an advance, you know, when you hear about, you know, the $1 million advance or whatever, it's a loan.
Yeah, it's not real
and it's
money.
not really like openly discussed, but that money is a loan, and then you pay that back when, you know, if you're okay. So you don't make anything really on Spotify. So mainly the big thing right now is touring, merch. I don't know, like brand stuff, like really big artists, and maybe if you've got a fan base who will buy physical merch, King Gizzard spring to mind. Even though then I don't know what their label situation is, but they're not doing the mainstream thing. And they just, what was I going to say? Yeah, and so they're fronting this money, and then you're just paying it back with what you earn. So it's just sort of like a fancy non-interest based loan, you know. And then you hear horror stories about, like, people really, like, you know, if things don't go to plan, if you get that $1 million advance and then the tunes don't go the way that they do, you're kind of like pseudo in debt. You're also incredibly beholden to their release schedules. It can be a very, very oppressive system. So I think we're going the last 10, 15 years, I think ever since Radiohead did the In Rainbows thing, which for people who don't know, they released a record, and at the time people were pirating a lot of music with things like LimeWire and Deezer and whatever. So in a reaction,
that's cool though, isn't it?
It's very
cool
baller.
stealing.
It's very baller. I had a meeting with someone at EMI one time and we spoke about that because they were with EMI at the time, and basically they releasing this record and with a system where you could go online and you could pay what you want for it, right? So they're reacting to people getting it for free anyway. So they're like,
what are you going to pay?
Whatever. Just pay whatever you want. You know, it's safe to say that people at EMI were very chagrined. Were deeply, deeply chagrined because that potentially meant that they were going to lose out on loads of money. But they, you know, quite deftly and quite clairvoyantly knew where the industry was going. And then we're sort of living right in the middle of that right now.
And also, like, they had the luxury as well of being a massive band.
They had the luxury as well of
do you know what I mean? And that, so you have to take that. But what I was just thinking while you were talking about that is, in a way, you know, you're taking this advance, which is, you know, I guess a loan. Yeah. I mean, what's stopping you going out to the bank and getting a loan yourself?
Well, a little bit.
And then you know exactly what the rules are.
It's funny because when we were talking earlier about, what was the guy's name who didn't take the label thing?
Oliver Anthony, is it?
Oliver Anthony, right, okay.
Yeah.
So I was reading something, or I say reading, but it was probably like on a TikTok.
Yeah, you weren't really you don't read.
I was reading this article in the New York Times. No, I was on TikTok at 3 a.m. It might have been a video essay. I do like a video essay.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how, okay, so within theory, being able to go on TikTok, finding millions of people to support your music, then being able to make whatever you want and not being beholden to a label is like actually a utopian idea of a democratized industry. That's actually within theory great.
Yeah.
You know? And then, you know, but if you don't think about it too much, you're like, okay, well, that's great. Like if you, maybe labels just aren't the way, it's like you're removing the middleman, so on and so forth. But then this video essay made this really great point, and I think it is true because I definitely feel it as an artist, but sort of replacing one problem with another. The other problem being that then in order to do that, in order to be successful in the TikTok space, in algorithmically based spaces, you essentially have to become a content creator.
Yeah, you're not a musician, you're a content person, yeah.
Exactly. You have to feed algorithms, you have to feed people content. And I often feel like with some of these TikTok artists, in some cases, I think the music's great. A guy like Charlie Puth, he comes to mind because he's clearly an incredibly talented individual, like really, really, really talented. But there is a pressure and a expectation that the workload is probably going to be like 60% content creation and then like 40% making the thing that you actually love. And also, you know, for some people, myself included, those two things, those two energies are like very, very different and often non-complementary. Like when I'm writing, when I'm making music, it's a very private process. I'm quite solitary, a lot of reflection. I don't necessarily want like cameras in my faces. I don't want to necessarily be sharing that. I want to make the thing and then present it. So, and I just think that was such an interesting point for me is, okay, yeah, this is actually great. And it's placing, it's so good that, and so many artists have a voice and are being found because you can make a record on an iPad. Steve Lacy did that.
Yeah.
But then simultaneously, you know, there's going to be fallout. And I feel like right now, everything in the industry is in flux, and I feel like it's this big shit that's kind of like rocking back and forth, and an equilibrium and a balance just hasn't been found yet. And maybe I think it's the kind of thing that maybe it'll like all level out and it'll seem a lot clearer in 10 or 20 years. But also the idea of like content creation and everything becoming content. I watched another video essay about that the other day, and I feel like I could talk about that for another while. But okay, actually, but just to link it back to the management thing.
Yeah. So like,
I think, but drawing on the line under everything we're saying, I think like, what you have to say, or there's anybody who's like starting out, I think your only job as an artist is to have taste. Right? Like
what a thing.
Right. But it's literally all, your only job is to have a take on things and a taste in things, and then like swish that up, change it a little bit, and then make something new or that's a bit like you. And anybody who's coming along and saying like, if you just made it 1% poppier, because that was the big thing for me for ages, was like my management would always come back and be like, you know, do we need this instrumental section here? And you know, what if you know, or we'd be discussing a few different tunes to release, but it would always be the poppiest one. And it just those times never really landed, because I feel like people instinctively know when you're being like vulnerable and genuine, and that's what people like about artists, yeah? And artists don't do that when they feel like they're having to compromise their thing that they're making in order to satisfy a they. You know what I mean? So that's like a really long-winded and hopefully more insightful version of saying be true to yourself.
Be true to yourself.
And respect the journey.
Amazing. But
yeah, and just don't be beholden to these people, because they don't know as much as you think they know.
So you'd say, so it's basically the case of, so to sum that up, you'd say maybe if you were an up and coming artist, you should do as much as you can on your own without these people. If they come knocking first, you should just keep on cracking on and see if you can get to a point where you don't actually need them as much, and then negotiate or get something a bit better.
Labels do not want to develop an artist.
No.
It used to be the case, but you know, I've gone to meetings with majors, and then you sort of think, okay, we're meeting them, you've even played for them, and then they go, okay, cool, yeah, like let's keep talking, and then nothing really happens. And in the beginning, that's very confusing. But then you realize it's because whatever the next release is, they're just waiting.
Yep.
They're just waiting until you're like a finished product, and so then they can go multiply. They're just waiting for you to do all of the legwork and the graft yourself, and then they're gonna go, okay, well, here's like $500,000. Like now, like do everything with bells and whistles and work with some really famous producer who you might not even like working with. Like, who's the guy with the spiky hair and he looks like Pippi Longstocking and he's northern and he's got massive lips?
Youngblood.
Thank you,
Youngblood. Oh, right, yeah.
I heard this story about him recently where because he's obviously flying, and then he went to go
Rob
to
wants
LA.
to work with him.
Yeah,
But
Brinkman.
maybe
yeah.
we shouldn't we should probably cut that bit out because I don't want to, you know.
No, but me and Brinky were talking about him the other day because he's someone who, like, you know, humble upbringing. He's an English guy. I don't know where he's from. Probably like Midlands or something, or Northern. And he's gone to LA to work with the producer,
The guy.
in the big studio, you know. And then he was like, "Oh no, it was like proper shit. Like, I hate it. I want to like go. I actually doing okay, Youngblood."
Not bad.
Wait, what does he
I don't know
say?
if you're going to be supporting him on tour, but you know, like
I just like fucking love you. No, that's not it. But I mean, he said, oh, but it was like actually like proper shit, you know, because like I just like love being myself, and it's all about myself, and it's all about like wearing eyeliner and being like strumming a guitar and strumming some bar chords at home. I actually really rate Youngblood, but that wasn't a diss.
nah, he's good.
But it's so true. Like, I've been in scenarios where I've like,
That was actually such a good impression.
I think I'm okay at impressions.
Maybe.
I think it's a musician thing. But yeah, I've like worked.
So,
Go on.
can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
Because in my mind, right, when I'm listening to like my favorite bands and
Of which I'm
music,
one.
of course, I actually do like your music.
That's
Actually,
really
I don't
kind.
think we've ever really spoken about your music, but I mean, we can
No.
do if you want. But I
No,
don't-
because you know what that would be like? It'd be like us accidentally seeing each other naked.
but you've played
just
my
like
guitar.
let it
You've played-
happen.
You've played my guitars.
Just like, you don't have to talk about it. Like, it happened and we both felt a certain way about it. Maybe you were aroused. And I just think you got to leave it at that. I think it's like too much.
Let's leave it there.
You can if you want.
No.
No, actually, no. What were you going to say?
No. What were we? When I'm listening to like my favorite music, I, as the consumer, I'm not thinking at all about any of this stuff in the background at all. I'm just listening to this album or this song, and I'm just like enjoying it.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes the industry maybe just like thinks that they sort of just make it all about the kind of the views and the stuff like that, and it's just like it just distracts everything away from the actual point, which is like people want to listen to good music that they like and connect with them.
It's a massive spanner in the works. I don't think people want to listen to music that much anymore. And I think I read something, and I think it was a genuine read thing. But
No one's turning into a musician after this podcast, are they?
we're millennials.
Maybe this is your psyop.
What's a psyop?
I think it's
Psychological operation.
I think it's like I have to say
I'm killing the competition.
Like yeah, you've got this narrative, and you're kind of like actually got another agenda around the back door. That's actually no. Anyway,
I read somewhere that we're millennials, but for Gen Z not listening to music in the same way.
they're just like
they're not spending as much time on like Spotify and and SoundCloud as like we did Apple, like iTunes, or having like an iPod. And if you think about it, it makes sense. Like, even for me personally, I do not listen to as much music as I used to. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't. It's just not the same anymore, because I think we live in an incredibly visual society, in a society where maybe because of things like TikTok, music and visuals, there's almost like an expectation of those two things to be paired. And also, if you think about, I've been thinking about my life recently, or like I spend a lot of my days just like constantly stimulated,
yeah.
And I think we've all had that experience of when we're watching a film and you want to get
the phone
TikTok
out as well,
right?
yeah.
So I think that also is sort of contributing. If you think about like what music listening to music is, I feel like I used to just listen to music. I sat and I listened to music. I don't do that anymore, barely at all. I'm always like listening music and.
Yeah. But have you tried? Okay, so we were doing that a lot. Me and Sarah.
Yeah.
We did it's not a new idea, but like we did the vinyl thing and started buying all of our favorite albums and and you get some funny like albums as well on vinyl, and like we'll put it on instead of the TV in the evening.
Yeah, we spoke about this when I came around yours.
Me and Sarah, we don't mean to, but I think it's just because we don't want to pay for a TV license, so we just don't have a TV. I think Sarah looked at the bill and was like, I'm not paying for a TV license. We just won't have a TV. So we don't. And we don't watch BBC content. So there we go. Just so everyone knows.
Sorry, was that a political statement?
No, just a
Jesus, the way
statement.
you said that, I was
just
like,
a statement. I don't want to be,
because Bruce Forsyth touched me.
Hey, wow. Jesus.
It's coming out of the woodwork, isn't it, with Russell Brand?
Oh man,
I just wanted to spin the wheel.
I was talking about that the other day. No, let's not go into Russell Brand.
No,
actually.
because that's too dated. Yeah, we're getting hard cut sides.
This is why we're getting. This is why. Yeah. Okay. We'll cut.
We were making good points.
No, we were.
The vinyl thing,
well,
which
let's
I
track
think
back.
The vinyl thing, and I think
that's why I need you here. You think you can't? You need to not be part of this. Like, this is why I need you. Right. Let's cut back.
Music was proliferated. No, we shouldn't cut there because I'm looking at the camera.
Where were we?
Okay, wait. Pause. And then I know how to pick it up. Music was like proliferate. No, we can't pick it up there. Okay, wait. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Music was like omnipresent and sort of everywhere. Maybe when we were growing up more and like 10 years ago. But now maybe with the vinyl thing, I think that's so interesting because is the vinyl, I think maybe certain types of media, I don't know, this is a half-baked idea because I think it's really related to content. But now, does like listening to a record almost have to sort of like become this like ritual?
Yeah.
And I feel like the vinyl thing, so much of that is about like the tactility of putting it on and then
it finishing halfway through.
Huh?
It finishing halfway through. Like you're like listening and then you're like, oh, where did that go?
Back in the day, we could just put it on iTunes, right? And then we would maybe have the ability to be able to concentrate on it long enough for that to just happen. But maybe it just speaks to sort of like an attention deficit that there has to be this like visual ritual thing happening.
A feeling.
Yeah, or tactility, which is cool. I'm not against it, but I just think think it's interesting.
Well, so
I think it's a really good point.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess the counter to that is you're not going to convince the whole world to go back to vinyl. Like, only people who really care about music are going to go back to vinyl, really.
Right.
So that's just like the way it is.
No.
And most people are just going to have their phone and they will listen to it through TikTok or, whatever means they are. I get your point about people. Maybe music isn't such a important thing at the minute to people's lives, but I think
becomes a hobby, or it becomes a hobby for enthusiasts. Enthusiasts, and you have like industrious music. You have music that's huge on TikTok, music that's huge on the radio, right? And that just exists in its own sphere. Taylor Swift, whatever, who I actually really rate, but anyway, I know you don't, so we won't get into it.
Oh, man.
And then you have like
your literally the Swifties are going to come to this podcast. Like,
my girlfriend's
I don't have a problem with Taylor Swift, by the way, just so you know.
Well, the haters are going to hate. And then you've got like King Gizzard fans, right? Who will buy 5 different versions of their vinyl. When they release a vinyl, they'll do special editions. They'll release it in 5 different colors because they know, and the reason that they can stay afloat, their whole model is catering to the music enthusiast. And I think I've witnessed my groins tearing, this will come back around, from doing the splits, because one foot is like, and management and stuff want me to do pop industrious music,
right? And
then the other foot, and I think really my disciplines, the bands that I like, are doing maybe music enthusiast stuff.
Yeah.
And then I've just been like tearing both of my hamstrings trying to straddle both. But I think maybe that could be, it's so complicated. But I think that could be a veering that's going to happen.
So you have to then decide: are you like a TikTok music artist, or are you a? And I don't mean this in a demeaning way to the idea of if you want to do TikTok music, like fine. No. But like if you want to make that music, cool. But then if you want to make music that's for people who want to listen to a 4 or 5 minute song, cool too.
Yeah, it's probably a chicken and egg thing, isn't it? Like, how do you? Because hopefully in an ideal situation, you're making the music that you want to make, and then your audience reveals itself.
So the other idea I have.
Oh, cool! Here we go.
I've got an idea, right? Yeah. Is that actually the idea that it being such a global presence is actually maybe not so important as if you, because, and the reason I say it is that everyone wants to be like massive and like have like millions and millions of streams. Well, maybe actually getting 200 people who are like maybe local to your area or your country, maybe more than 200 people in the country maybe, is actually more beneficial to the artist than it is having that many streams. So you've got, so let's, for instance, say you've got 3,000 streams on Spotify on a song. Yeah. Okay. The amount of money that you're making from that, we all know, everyone knows, isn't £3,000 worth of money. It's not that, and it's so small compared to that.
Yeah, we could talk about that.
Well, no, do you think that's even interesting to talk about now? Because I feel like everyone knows. It's
as long as
so
people know
crap.
the realities. Like, so what? So Drive, the tune that's on FIFA, that's on like 1.5 million, I think, at the minute.
Yeah,
and that's like 3 or 4K, I think,
which isn't enough to pay anything.
No, you got to bear in mind when you release a tune.
Yeah,
that you spend $1,000.
Yeah,
you spend a few hundred on a radio plugger, and then there's press and little bits and pieces, and you probably pay like an artist to make some artwork, and you might have like recording costs. So minimum, it's like a K,
So the point being is you're not recouping from Spotify listens. So that's like
absolutely not.
The Spotify
Nobody is
thing,
apart from Taylor Swift.
Yeah. So the Spotify thing is really just a means for people to listen to your song. Okay. So maybe the way to actually go about it is that you have to just have a really good fan base who's maybe just local, or maybe you're lucky enough to make it big enough to go, yeah, if you can go European if you're in the UK, but it maybe has to be more, but it has to become smaller to be better for you as the artist.
There was an artist I was thinking of recently. I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was like Jockstrap. I don't know, but they're not massive. And if you go on their Spotify streams as well, they're such like a misnomer, because if you look at their streams, maybe they were like X amount, maybe like 50,000, 100,000 a month. And this couldn't have been Jockstrap actually, because that would have been a lot more. And also like their streams on their actual tunes weren't that high either. But then I think I was on their Instagram, and they'd like packed out some venue with like 800 to 1,000 people. And bear in mind, like, we're on currently, and this is mainly like a FIFA thing, but we're on like 38-ish thousand monthly streams, right? Okay. Which is super groovy. It's actually kind of mind-boggling.
It's nice to know that you've got those people there.
But they're not there. Because they're people who are like all over the world that aren't going to come down. Like, we couldn't, tomorrow, we couldn't pull
30,000 to a venue.
No, we couldn't pull 200 to a venue right now, probably. Right. And yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like where the power resides, or like you can have a genuine, a real fan base that sort of doesn't necessarily like oscillate or doesn't represent itself with the numbers, with the data. Yeah, which I think is very interesting.
Well, because we all live in that thing where we can just look up stuff really quickly on the internet and find out what it is, and we then make an association as to how big or successful someone is by that. But in reality, the actual human, I think it is that human connection. Yeah, you're not going to see that.
Right, think about how you use Spotify. I have in like my light songs, there are loads of tunes in there, and I can't recall the name of the artist or the name of the tune, and that's probably the case for all of us. So I'm if they're coming through London, I'm sure as fuck not going to go see them, right?
No.
But like they might be streaming massive because they're on a certain playlist or people listen to them in the background. Arguably, you can make the same case for us, you know. And then there are other artists where the inverse is true.
They're not pulling that big streams, but the people who are streaming them are buying their merch, they're going to their shows, they're buying, and then that, you know, if they're doing enough of that, they might actually be making more to actually support their living.
Yeah, so, absolutely they are. Yeah.
Okay, so this brings me on because to me personally, I find it an interesting topic of conversation, which is I guess because I've done it personally, but the decision not to go and work for someone else doing, you know, someone else's thing for them and working for yourself to build your own thing. And
that's
how do you find, and obviously being a musician and an artist doing what you're doing, how do you find the daily motivation to do that?
Now I feel this like new lease of productivity and motivation because I have a singular and core belief that what I am doing is precisely what I want to be doing with my life, you know?
Sick.
Which is, but...
That's fucking... I'm so happy to hear that.
Thanks, man.
That's the fucking best thing I could hear.
But I think... But I'm also like... friends with and like family members and stuff are going through funks recently in life where they don't know what that one thing is. And I think I'm super fortunate where like music was just the only thing.
Right.
It was the thing that I was like really, really good. And teachers at school and whatever and growing up was like, okay, this kid has to do this thing. And I sort of, I'm like maybe lucky in one way, cursed in another. Lucky in that almost like my fate is sort of decided for me. I have to... Or something I think a lot is like 40 or 50-year-old James will look back at this period of my life, and go, okay, whenever I think about not wanting to do a thing that I have to do or not gritting my teeth or feeling sorry for myself, I'm like, okay, 50-year-old James is like looking at you right now going, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
You still have hair on your head.
Yeah.
I don't anymore, and he won't.
No. I've seen that hairline, son. I've seen that hairline.
Like, you are being paid to make music. People are giving you money and opportunities to do it.
It's fucking
You have to do this right now. It is, and I'm so lucky. But it's more like I'm sort of like beholden to the mood of the universe as to whether it's going to pan out for me a little bit. But I have to. 50-year-old James has to know that I try, and then that's it. That's it. I think that's like a motivating thing for me.
I know exactly.
So did I answer your question?
No, that was exactly.
Okay.
But I found that really interesting because that's the exact same motivation I had for starting this.
Yeah.
Because it's the same thing. It's that thing where I spoke to someone who was in there, like on the course that I was doing when I was doing guitar making, and they were in their sort of like 50s or 60s or whatever, and they wished they'd done this when they were younger. And it just made me feel like, oh, okay, so this is a thing that people actually feel. And so you could be living your whole life waiting to do the thing that you want to do, and then you get there and you're like, oh man, I've only got like 10 years left. I mean, anyone could have 10 years left. That's the thing. Yeah. That's the mad other thing.
Less, yeah.
Or less. And so I think it is really important that, you know, and it's hard because so many people have different circumstances to maybe you and I, who have been, you know, I think it's fair to say very privileged to get to the point where we are, where we can take a leap and go, oh, is this going to work? Yeah. But yeah, I think even just doing
That's
something
really important to say.
That I think it is important to say because
I'm 30 and I'm like living at home and I'm not making enough money to like rent in London or whatnot.
Yeah.
It's not that much. It's like just a little bit less than minimum wage. It's not.
But the you know, I guess the wholesome idea on that is that, you know, anyone can do, you know, even if it's in their evenings or what have you, can be like, you know, learning a craft or something which might help them through whatever it is, and then them getting better at that might then open up some of the avenues, because you can. I think my point of view is like, you can actually make money out of doing something that you like doing. Like, there is a way to make money out of doing something that you actually enjoy doing.
Yes. I'd say yes with a massive asterisk. Like, it is, I think it's always possible. I'm always incredibly suspicious that there's a lot of luck involved. I also think that increasingly it's more difficult as a musician to do what we're describing than other disciplines. Like, I've got buddies, Bradley, who's a very successful filmmaker and photographer. And there's like a market. People want to pay people to put cameras in front of things. And the music industry's in a bit of a funk. But yeah, regardless as to the viability, I think, because I wonder all the time, like, oh, maybe like I shouldn't, or I should, like, I also really enjoyed teaching, blah, blah, blah. There's plan A's, there's plan B's, blah, blah, blah. But it's just so 50-year-old James, whatever he is doing, can sort of breathe easy. It's literally just because I know myself enough now to just know, and like enough friends over the years who've said, like, look, you have to, I've been goaded into it enough, you know. One thing I wish I did have a little bit more early on was more self-belief, because I think I would have conducted myself a lot. But that's really hard to have. I suppose you're sort of like asking me, you know, how it happens, but like I'm trying to think now, like, where do these things truly come from? You know, where does self-belief really come from? Because it can't really come from affirmation. Because there's one thing that I've learned as well is, like, you know, because along the way, you know, you get little rewards like the FIFA thing or whatever, and then or someone said at some point, you know, if you start to like let in the good, which naturally you all want to do, you know, you want to go, okay, this is a good thing, something good's happened in my life, I'm going to take that and I'm going to let that massage my ego, then you're probably also going to be more affected by the bad. You know what I mean? And sometimes it can be important a little bit to be a little like zen about it.
Right, and not be too worried, just letting it happen.
And not think too much of what anybody thinks about what you're doing, good or bad. Because the temptation, whenever I'm finishing a tune, is like ping it out and go, what do you think? What do you think? We think. Just looking for that affirmation, looking for that good thing. But then all of a sudden you're slightly beholden to those people's opinion of you. And maybe you want to start making things that like are sympathetic to what they like, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that can be like a weird thing to fall into. I have this theory that like in someone's lifetime, you can perfectly map where someone's in life depending on their favorite Beatle. So when you're wait, is this right? Wait, I've said this theory, I have to get it right now. Beatle writer, let's ignore Ringo for a second. So it starts off with McCartney with like Hey Jude, and because it's all like lullabies and like, oh hey Jude, you know, right? And then when you're like a rebellious teenager, it's John Lennon, because it's like Strawberry Fields Forever and everything's all smoking pot and all, whoa, crazy, you know, right? And then I had this in my mid-20s, it's George Harrison. The songwriting is a lot more subtle and like interesting, and it's all about guitars. And then now that I'm 30, it's gone full circle, it's gone back to Macca, because, and I'll tell you for why, I think his songwriting and the craftsmanship in his songwriting I can appreciate in like a whole new way, because I think I have now this understanding of sort of harmony and everything. And I feel like you go through this with certain artists. For me, growing up, it's like Nirvana, Queens of the Stone Age, and then I got to sort of like teens, early 20s, it's bands like Radiohead, you know, and I love like a band like Radiohead like so much, but I think because of this like cocaine neurological experience, when I go back and listen to the Nirvana stuff, Queens of the Stone Age stuff, it just like, it's sort of, there's like a short circuit neurologically to me. Do you have the same thing with AC/DC? Or
it's not AC/DC for me, but like AC/DC just gets me like happy. I'm like in a good place when I'm on. I like, that's my like car music if I'm like want to get somewhere quick, like that's on. But no, I think the point is that those bands and those feelings that you get from those bands is just like, when you think, oh man, I could actually, it's like you start covering their songs and you start like playing it and you're like, oh man, like, I could actually maybe do it, and goes from there. But that's fun. Yeah, I mean, so you to go back to it, so you went from the starting on the pots of hands and all that So
where saxophone,
saxophone,
and then Nirvana, and then I wanted to buy a guitar.
So
when
as
I
the
was
guitar,
like 12, 13.
guitar always seems to be like a very good gateway into. It's like the weed of instruments, you know, like it's the gateway into getting into different things. So are you a guitarist mostly? Is that your like?
I think it's something that I write at, and I think
tool.
it is, and I think it's one of them. I think it's like the most important instrument maybe ever created.
Because it's
That
very
is such
easy
a bold statement.
Well, it's very easy to.
It's so malleable. It's because it's so malleable. Because with a tool, you want to be able to express who you are, right? And like saxophone, it's actually really difficult because jazz looms really large over playing the instrument. A, B, you can't sing whilst you do it. You can't hit more notes than one. It's like monophonic, right? But like an electric guitar in particular can be so many different things, fulfill so many different roles in different arrangements. It's sort of a like a blank page almost, which you can sort of like imprint. I think there are more guitarists. I think one of the best compliments you can pay an instrumentalist is say that they have like a voice on an instrument, right? Because it denotes that they have something that's so characteristically unique about the way they play an instrument. It's like a voice which is incredibly idiosyncratic and instantly recognizable. And maybe it's because I'm a guitar guy, but I feel like other than the voice, there are like more guitar guys, guitar people who have those voices. This is a bit of a hot take. Than maybe like a lot of other instruments because it's so malleable.
Well, I think when the general public maybe thinks about music and they go, "Oh, what's your favorite piano player?" I don't know. This is just like
It's such a good example. Yeah.
For me, like to be honest, even though I'm in like the industry of like music and things, to be honest with you, I actually don't know.
The Muggles are going to have a favorite guitarist,
but they're going to know like Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah,
they're going to know it. They're going to know it because it just has that sound. Like, and even if they don't know the sound, or like Eddie Van Halen. So you are right. I think the guitar has that place where it's because I think the note that the person is playing isn't a perfect note.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
And what I mean is like there's many ways I guess you could think about it, but it's that the scale length on a normal guitar and the way that the guitar is formed on most guitars, not every note on that guitar is exactly the note. It's slightly off. It's just a little bit off. Yeah. So if you were going to go, okay, that's, you know.
So we're talking about intonation. In a way.
A lot of the time, the intonation's off anyway, just because of either poor technique, and maybe poor technique is part of it as well.
Oh, they say tones in the fingers, right?
So like poor technique might mean that you just bend that note just that little bit far, sharp or flat, and that's your sound. And that's the sound. You know, like Mac DeMarco has that kind of like wonky sound. That's that, you know, and maybe it's the effects he's using, but maybe it's just like the way he's kind of playing it. It's just that little bit. He's pulling the strings. With a bass player and things like that, they're kind of coming in with it now with the 6 string. They're trying to infiltrate the guitar playing. You know, they've got their 6 strings, but. Come on now.
No.
To be honest with you, you know, to all my 6-string players friends, I love you. You know I love you.
It's just not as malleable. It's sort of like a perfect instrument. I think that's why so many people are attracted to it.
Well, I think it's perfect because it is an imperfect instrument in that way. And it's easy to, you know, you can pretty much, I'd say, anyone how to play like 3 chords,
right?
And they
so
can play a song within a month, probably.
Yeah, it's so interesting to analyze the proliferation of that instrument, because I think it is one of those instruments.
You could even tune it so it's like you literally have to just hold down the note, the like bar, and you got a chord.
It's there are so few instruments that sort of like properly transcend genre. You know, when people pick up a saxophone and play Jerry Rafferty, but they think jazz, right? Like, because it's tied, and even I don't know, bass guitar maybe is more of a halfway house, and I don't know, maybe you could say the same about drums, but you know, there's going to be a guitar on, I'd say, a wide range of genres than anything else. Might be talking out my hole here a little bit.
No, I think it is. No, I think it is.
We're biased.
True.
We're guitar guys.
Yeah, no, man. I mean, this, hey, they're not listening to this.
Hey, it's written right there. Hey, it's literally been lit up in neon behind us.
Listen, I think we'll probably wrap it.
Are we wrapping up now?
I think we're wrapping up.
Oh, no way.
I know, man.
I feel like we're just getting started. This is the thing about friendship.
What do you think? Yeah,
Yeah,
I think we've hit some points, man, and you can always come back in.
Oh, I would love to. I've really enjoyed it.
You can always come back in, but I think, hey, for the first podcast, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for listening. And on to the next one.